Welcome everyone. Wonderful to share the celebration with you. For those of you who are new to ORT Jet, we are an organization that supports entrepreneurs in the Jewish community through mentorship, networking, and training. If you would like to know more, please connect with Brenna or me. Today we have the privilege of hearing from 4 dynamic women. These ladies have all given a huge amount of time to ORT Jet. As coaches, therapists, mentors to entrepreneurs on the ORT Jet mentorship program, as well as guidance and support to Brenna and me. We thank you for your ongoing support and are incredibly grateful for our collaborations. It is relationships like these that have enabled ORT Jet to grow and become the organization that it is today. This morning, we have given each speaker a 10-minute time limit. As you can imagine, there is much to say in their respective topics. Firstly, Nikki Woolman, Global Executive Coach, will share her perspective around work. Glenda Mark, Clinical Social Worker, will focus on relationships. Mandy Katz, Life Coach and Grief Counselor, shares her thoughts on parenting, teachers, and teams. And lastly, Sarit Werb, entrepreneur and co-owner of Sister Act, share how she and Elanette pivoted their business to survive the crisis. Before I hand over to Nikki, please feel free to post comments and questions in the chat box, and Brenna will address them at the end in the Q&A. And remember to please keep your microphones on mute. Thank you for giving of your time and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. Over to you, Nikki.
Thank you so much, Lise, and good morning, everybody. It's incredible to see so many faces, so many familiar faces. It's lovely to be here and have the opportunity to share some thoughts. And I'd like to start off with offering 2 questions. So if any of you just have a pen and you want to just jot down some answers, I'm going to offer you 2 questions to think about. The first question is, what's making you feel most alive at the moment? What's making you feel most alive at the moment? Just the first thing that comes to your mind as you hear that question. And then the second question is, what has steadied you in the last few months that have been incredibly turbulent for all of us, really, in different ways? So what's making you feel most alive and what has steadied you? Just the first things that come to mind. I'm going to ask you to park those answers and we're going to come back to them in a couple of minutes. So the opportunity of working with remarkable women and men in many countries over the last couple of months has been fascinating. And what's been so interesting is to notice how there have been really universal themes that have emerged. And I'd like to just highlight a couple of these themes with you this morning. I think the first really is this massive burden of responsibility that entrepreneurs and business leaders are holding. Holding responsibility for lives and for livelihoods, and knowing that, making one decision can really impact hundreds of families. It's a real burden that people are holding with huge impact. And in addition to that, as leaders in that role, they are really receiving the projection of all the anxiety and fear and uncertainty that's coming at them from the system. And what they're needing to do, and a lot of this is unconscious, but they're really needing to hold and metabolize all of this anxiety for the organization system. And unless these leaders have got their own processes and systems and renewal outlets to manage their own energy and process this, what we're seeing is a lot of people are actually getting burnt out and even sick. And I'm seeing a lot of that now, actually, with some of my senior leaders that I'm working with. And in addition to that, of course, there's this massive juggling that's been going on of, working from home, schooling from home, and especially, parents with young kids. This has really, really taken its toll. And what I've noticed is this fear that's emerged around, am I doing enough? If people can't see me, do they know that I'm contributing, that I'm adding value? And what that's actually led to is a sense of overworking and overcompensating, which is again leading to a lot of fatigue and burnout. And some clients have actually mandated that their staff have to take leave now because they're noticing the impact of this trend. And then, of course, the real amplification of issues related to self-esteem, to self-worth, to confidence really taken a knock. Anything that was a crack or a fault line before this time has now become magnified. One of my clients really described it as a plague of self-doubt, which is such an evocative way of describing, this experience. And then, of course, when you add to that financial stress, businesses being impacted, illness, loss, and just the general trauma of this disrupted time, this is all just exacerbated and compounded. And so these developmental issues and relational issues that may have been there before have now become almost more urgent to deal with because they've taken front and center. The good news is that this has not been the case for everybody, and some people have in fact thrived in this time. And I think the reason for this is because of how they've approached this, and really they've come at it from what I'm thinking of as an inside-out approach. And that's really what I want to chat about this morning. So many are describing the world today as a complex time. We've described the world as complex for a number of years, actually, but now it's exponentially more disrupted than ever before. And if anyone's interested in this, highly recommend the work of David Snowden and his work on complexity, and particularly the Kinnavan model, which really gives a lot of insight into this idea. But essentially, complexity means that the link between cause and effect is intertwined, and we can't see it clearly, and we can only really see it in hindsight. Things are unpredictable, they're disordered, and we cannot rely on the fact that the same thing we've always done before is going to give us the same outcome that we've ever had before. So applying the same process in our business or with our people is not going to give us necessarily the same outcome. There's no recipe. It's not like baking a cake where you put the right ingredients, mix in the same way, and you'll get the same cake at the end of the day. So what this is requiring of us is a different way of being. It's requiring a way that we need to manage this balance between really grounding and centering ourselves in the present. And that means, I love this idea of slowing down to the pace of contact. Really just think about that statement. So slowing down to the pace of contact, which means slowing down to the point at which you can contact yourself, contact others, really get in touch with your own resourcefulness, and come back internal, so that you're not looking to the outside world to give you the answers and to give you the means, but you're orienting yourself so that you are best positioned to what is emergent, because the complexity is an emergent space. We're sitting in the emergent. So whatever we're at now, how best are we placed to respond to what is coming at us from this unfolding and emergent future? And I like to think of the idea as a well. If we are a well and people are constantly taking water from us, we're going to dry up. And really what we need to do is make sure that we are connected to this deep, underground, limitless source of water that is infinite, that is there for us, and that can constantly nourish and sustain us and then other people. And how do we do that? Well, we do that by connecting to the qualities that will give us these access to this deep well of resourcefulness, and then designing some practices that are going to help us to consistently give attention to these qualities. And so if you think now back to the way you answered those two questions that I asked up front, those answers will give you an indication already now about what resources you are tapping into in yourself. So what's making you feel most alive and what's steadied you in the last few months? It might be things like connection to people, to nature, to art, to music, to learning, to meditation. It's a big one for me. Meditation and exercise are my two main grounding sources. Maybe it's gardening, maybe it's reading, cooking, writing. All of these have been incredibly sustaining and nourishing for many of the people I've been working with. And what I'd like to do is just share with you some of the core qualities that I think can really help us to connect with and help us to thrive instead of just trying and survive. And so firstly, we look at the I domain, which is you as an individual, everything about you. In that domain, the qualities we really want to try and connect to are qualities of stillness, of curiosity, openness, joy, love, spaciousness, wellness, vitality, creativity, and self-trust. These are expansive qualities. When we connect with these qualities that are in us, they open us up to possibility and to connect with the patterns that are emerging in our world that we can use to navigate through and to guide us. And some questions that you might want to ask yourself, and I'm happy to make these questions available after the talk today, for anyone who would want them. What is here now? Such a great starting point. What is here now? What is my felt sense of being me in this current moment? What's the story I'm telling myself? Is it a story of possibility and action, or is it a story of contraction and stagnation? Where am I holding fear? What happens when I'm in fear? Do I numb out? Do I get passive aggressive? Do I lash out? Do I retreat? And what is the impact of that behavior? What's the quality of my movement and my sleep and my nutrition? And how am I learning and growing? What's inspiring me in my world? And then if we look at the we domain, and that's me in relationship to other people, right? I mean, there's so many qualities here, but just two that I want to highlight are the qualities of strength and compassion. Almost like two wings of this beautiful eagle. Strength is the capacity to take a stand for what you are observing around you, for setting healthy boundaries, so important in this time. You know, old boundaries that need to be reaffirmed and new boundaries that need to be negotiated and established. What we say yes to and no to, and our sense of self-expression and autonomy and influence in the world. And then compassion is our capacity to be with suffering, to connect again, to be softened by our own suffering, but also softened by the suffering of other people. And when we put strength and compassion together, we really get to courage. And that is what we need now, most and more than ever. And so I think my 10 minutes is up, but really what I wanted to end off with is really to come back to this idea of grounding and centering and connecting to our own deep well of our innate resources that we all have access to. And there's a lovely story by a famous Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh, who said that, you know, we need to remain calm to see clearly. And he spoke about the Vietnamese boat people who, you know, try to leave Vietnam in these small boats, and often they encourage rough seas, and people start to panic and the boats sink and many lives are lost. And he says, you know, all it takes is for one person to be calm, to be centered, to be lucid, to keep focused, and that is contagious on that boat. Everybody manages to remain calm, and in that way you manage to save many lives. And I really believe that we are all that person, and that can be every one of us, for ourselves and for others. Thank you so much for listening. And on that note, I'd like to hand over to Glenda to share her thoughts with us on relationships.
Thank you, Nikki. Wow, got to follow that. Okay, so when I spoke to Lisa about doing this talk, we said I would talk about couples, and I will be talking about couples, but of course, I have to talk about the individuals as well, because we come to our coupleness as an individual. We bring along with us our histories, our personalities, our struggles, our joys, our successes, everything comes along with us. So right now we have all been attacked by this never before seen enemy that has ripped into our lives and changed absolutely everything for everyone. Our known reality has been completely changed and challenged, and people are talking about a new normal, and I completely disagree with this. There is nothing normal about this. It is a new abnormal, and the world is responding to a new extreme emergency, a severe trauma. There's no normal here. And the truth is we are all experiencing profound grief. We have suffered so many losses. So much has been stolen from us. And I think if I had to ask everyone to make a list of what they have lost during this time, each of you could come up with a long list of losses. Whether you've lost a loved one to corona or whether it's things in your life that have just been taken from you. But high on the list of the losses is that we've lost our grounding, our reference point. The rug has been pulled out from under us. And so we are mostly facing uncertainty about so much. Of course, the most important relationship in our lives is the relationship we have with ourselves. And Corona has brought up all our vulnerabilities, all our fears, everything's brought into focus, as Nikki has said. And we need to try to manage all these feelings that come bubbling up for us now. We need to try to manage them. And how do we do this? The first step is to be aware of them, to notice them, and to try to see what they are, that this is something we can name and we can deal with. I've noticed in my practice, many people are processing things which have been emotionally dormant for them for many years, but are suddenly coming up now because, of course, we can't go out. And so we're tending to go inward and examine ourselves and our lives and all sorts of things that make us us. And the situation can bring out the best or the worst in us. We do have some agency in that. We can make choices about how we're going to show up here. Are we going to come through this in the best way possible, making ourselves our best people possible, or are we going to be flattened by it? Look, we are all likely to feel loss of control. We have lost control of our lives, but in another sense, if you look at it and if we examine it carefully, we never really had much control anyway. We thought we did, and we live as if we do because it makes us feel better, but there's a lot we don't actually have control over. And that is a vulnerability we have to accept. We all have to know that vulnerability is not weakness, it's actually an opportunity to show your courage. And resilience is the way you cope with all these difficult things. So we need to resist face our feelings rather than resist them, because of course there are many people acting out, people using drugs, alcohol, if they can get their hands on it, they're using all sorts of medicinal medicines that they are taking in the wrong way or too much of. And this, of course, is not helpful. If we don't face our feelings, they don't disappear. They go inside and they become transformed into something else, like a physical symptom, like Nikki said, people are getting sick, people are, and also they can be sublimated into all sorts of dysfunctional behavioral patterns. And in couples, of course, that is, where it's going to show up a lot. Now, let's just talk about couples for a minute. Many have predicted high levels of divorce during this time. And we will see, of course, because no one's been able to get to their divorce lawyer really. But our relationships have been put to the utmost test. We are with our partners 24/7, no room for escape, no gaps, no distractions. We have more time together than ever before. And my finding so far is that couples tend to become more of what they were. Their state of coupleness, of how they were as a couple, becomes amplified and magnified. And just to illustrate this, I'll mention 3 different types of couples, 2 of which are likely to have had a terribly hard time during lockdown. The one is the avoidant couples, the couples who are disconnected from each other. They're emotionally distant, they don't share a lot. The emotional pain of loneliness is highlighted now. You are together and yet alone, feeling alone. And that is very hard for people. And of course, This polarization can grow during this time if it isn't dealt with. Secondly, the second type are the couples in conflict. Now, these are the angry, warring couples who are in daily duels, toxic, poisonous interactions, blaming, criticizing, nitpicking, judging, all those horrible and ugly, aggressive ways of interacting. And I will give you a few pointers about dealing with conflict just now. But the third type of couple is the couple that has some strength and resources in their armory. They are couples that can adapt and change. They have some resilience, and they may form a new type of relationship. In fact, this has given them a great opportunity for transformation. They're talking more openly about their fears and so on with each other. And some couples are courting and having fun date nights, and as if it were a new relationship, as if they were starting over, as if it's a new beginning. So that is very heartening. Of course, all three of these things come up in all relationships: the distancing, the warring, and the arguments that do happen. And then, of course, the times when it feels like everything is actually going to be okay. So just a few tips for couples during lockdown to finish off. Number one, have a sense of humor. Laugh at yourselves, and as individuals and as couples. If you saw my hubby and I, sometimes we're in absolute stitches. If I told you what we were laughing at, you probably wouldn't find it that funny. But anyway, when tensions have been high, wait for a calm moment to try and have a conversation. Not a good idea to tackle something hectic when there's an argument. Take ownership of your feelings and don't blame the other. For example, don't say you are so lazy. Rather say, I really need your help. That's owning your feeling. That's saying where you're at. It's much easier to hear. I suggest using a talking stick. This is an old African indigenous cultural practice where the person holding the stick can talk, the other person must listen until the stick is handed over. This allows for equal airtime, especially if there's a power imbalance in a relationship. This is very useful because it gives the quieter partner a chance to have their say. Don't bring up the past, stick to the issue at hand. Also try to apologize, see where you're wrong and own up. Taking a little break from each other is not a bad idea. It can be healthy. When you start to irritate and annoy each other, take a little time out, and once things have calmed down, then come together again. It's a good time to try and talk about your fears and vulnerability and put to the test your support of each other and how you can be there for each other. Accept what is, embrace the reality. Have some courage. Take turns to be the leader. Step up and lead. Sometimes it's one person's chance, sometimes it's another person's chance. And then I just wanted to share something that I've read recently, which is some research about which couples are likely to be lasting in their relationship. The two most important qualities in a lasting relationship are kindness and generosity. I think Nikki mentioned compassion, and I think that goes to kindness. And when couples are able to be just kind to each other, talk with respect, show some generosity, that's when things are likely to go well. And it could be a time to take an emotional relationship audit and say, where are we? Where would we like to be in the future? Are there some goals we can set right now which we can take into the future? Are there some things from now we would rather not take into the future, and some that, yes, we've had some learnings and we can maybe carry that forward? Thank you all. I'm now going to hand over to Mandy, whose talk, I believe, is Parents, Teachers, and Teens. So I haven't talked about kids at all because I knew that Mandy was coming up next.
Thanks so much, Glenda. Thanks very much. Hello, everybody, and thanks so much for making the time to be here today. I know for many of us, it seems like the days aren't busy, or they shouldn't be busy, but in actual fact, for many of us, they're more jam-packed than ever before. So I do appreciate you being here to listen to all of us today, and special thank you to ORT for organizing this event and giving us the opportunity to share some insights of the work that we love so much. Over the past few months, I've been running a series of workshops for parents, teachers, and for teenagers. And each one is designed to offer courage and compassion so that we can reflect on our rough challenges and the swirl of emotions that we were experiencing with some clarity and strength. From just reflect on their areas of it's really left me with this feeling of I'm overwhelmed by the extent of disruption these months of isolation, quarantine, and social distance caused. And it seems really that if we're lucky enough to have retained a source of income, that allows us to put food on the table for our children and keep a permanent roof over our heads, that we will have been one of the lucky ones. And I'd like to draw attention today really to the challenges that our parents and our teachers and our teens are still holding as we go into what is close to our 6th month of living with this social distancing and isolation. So just to reflect a little bit on parents, and I know that Nikki spoke a lot about the workplace, and you know, there's one to be said about this new non-standard work schedule. I guess I don't really know how to refer to it, but we're allowed to be as flexible as we need to be, essentially, when we work from home. And it does allow us to meet all the needs of our kids and our home and our family, you know, whatever the needs might be at the time. But what it does to many of us is send us into a tremendous spin. You know, we don't necessarily have the discipline or the structure to manage ourselves that well. And working parents, and particularly single parents, are really stretched to the limit to create time to tutor their children, to care for their family, and still to manage to, you know, produce our usual standards of work is really taking its toll. So it's not that there simply aren't enough hours in the day, there actually aren't enough days in the week. And so what we find is that we're working weekends too. And that's really when we start to encroach on burnout. And we experience increased conflict in our relationships. So I guess this is a space where self-care is really more critical than ever before. Whether it means switching off our emails over the weekend, spending time in nature. I mean, we are so fortunate to be in Cape Town, immersing ourselves in a hobby. I mean, when last did you immerse yourself? Just the use of that word feels indulgent. Whether we're doing a family experience together, whether we're exercising, whether we're meditating, cooking, baking, just feel that point of immersion for ourselves. That's a point of self-care that I really love. And you know, when we think about the parents and teachers and kids and the fact that we are halfway through the year and we are still craving certainty to so many answers around things like, you know, how will this disruption impact our children's academic advancement? When will it really be safe to send our children back to school? Yes, they're being encouraged, but it's not necessarily one in the same thing. How is living with fear and uncertainty damaging our children's mental health? And how much time have we actually spent engaging with them around issues like that? So through my connection with kids and the workshops that I've been running with them, it's really come to the fore how this deep feeling of frustration with living with what can only be called a Groundhog Day. Since March, they've literally been living the same experience day in and day out. And for many of us, we marvel at, wow, how well they're doing academically, or how they're managing to stay on top of their work. And that's really because every other aspect of their life has fallen away. And this is fueling tremendous frustration. So they are missing out on real life events, which are really needed at this time of their lives. It's really a point of loss for them. The opportunity to gain courage and to gain confidence from newly found independence is not available to them at the moment. Under normal circumstances, they'd be learning how to think more for themselves. They'd be learning how to cope for longer periods of time away from home and away from the structures that provide so much support for them under normal circumstances. And now they don't have an opportunity to ride a school bus, to go on a sports tour, to expand their circle in any way. So there are no interest programs that are happening locally or overseas or even with other schools. And as an adult or somebody who works in a high school a certain couple of days a week, it really is amazing to contemplate the enormous losses that our younger teens and our older teens are experiencing right now. So parents and teachers are worrying how delaying these important growth experiences will affect them later on. Will they suffer from higher levels of anxiety because of this? We actually just don't know yet. The data isn't in, it's too early to tell. On the positive side, bravo, because there is a positive side, our teens are learning the value of having routine, and they're learning for themselves to figure out what is the best routine for them in this time. So we know that the predictability of a daily routine offers a sense of security and stability, and just that can reduce stress, depression, anxiety. It can improve our behavioral problems, improve our health situation. So it's really a big one to really understand and get the importance of routine. I think one of the greatest difficulties for all teens, and actually for many adults too, the younger teachers in particular, is that they're not that fluent in the language of emotion, especially the dark and dishonored ones, like shame and jealousy and fear and grief. And they're struggling to hold conflicting emotions in focus at the same time. So they're hanging on to a raging energy inside. And sometimes we can see this in their irritable mood, in their acts of frustration, in their anger that we can't figure out what are they angry about. They've got food on the table, they live in a decent house, they've got siblings to keep them company. If they, for many of them, they have it really good. So what are they so angry and frustrated about? But the truth is that their difficulty is in expressing the frustrations that they're holding inside. And an example of this will actually be, if we look at our matrics this year, who have really lost out on so much. There's no way to come to the end of your matric career, your school career, without experiencing all those last time matric experiences, the last sports day, the last gala, your last Pesach Seder at school, your last team tour around up to Joburg or Port Elizabeth. And so, some of them have been thinking about their dresses for the matric dance, and yet they're hugely aware of the real suffering that is happening in our country, of the hunger and the insecurity that so many people are facing on a day-to-day basis. They're not shut off from realities to such an extent. They are involved in making sandwiches and helping out. And for them, it's tough to hold both of these emotions at the same time. And parents and teachers can help them to recognize and to honor both of these pain points and help them to realize and to make space that, you know, there is room for all the tragedies that we're all feeling at this time, and none count more than others. Another thing that I'd like just to touch on is the craving, really, that our younger teens are feeling. It's been forever since they've felt real grass under their soccer boots. It's been forever for them since they've had a real sleepover and shared a bowl of popcorn with their friends. And parents, if you've tried to fill these gaps, you do know that you actually simply can't. So it's important for us to just acknowledge the extent of loss that they have experienced at this time. The workshops with teachers that have revealed such deep commitment to their work that it has really been moving to be on the listening side and to be able to show empathy towards them as they manage really their own traumas going through COVID-19. Many of them have vulnerable situations at home. Many of them have children at home who they still need to find time to help through manage their schooling. And somehow we have grown to depend on them in a way where we seldom stop and think, what is it that our teachers have given up to be here today? To be in the lesson online, to be in the lessons that are happening in class. They've had to upskill at a tremendous rate to manage blended lessons where they're available both online and in classes. And they seem to do this day in and day out with such deep commitment to the health and welfare of our children that I really do feel that it's worth a moment of recognition for them. Many of them are actually reflecting on...
Another minute or two and then we can just...
Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead and just to mention the trauma and mental health at this time that our parents and teachers and teens are experiencing at the moment. And while our children do need to remain our greatest concern, I think for me it's become clear that this combined relationship between teachers and parents and teens is really the strength point that we have to guide us forward into our what will hopefully be coming sooner than ever we could hope for, would be our post pandemic time, and just to really appreciate this valuable relationship that we have at our disposal. So thank you for taking the time to listen, and thanks, Bren, for giving me that extra minute. I am now going to hand over to Sarit, who will introduce herself if she needs any introduction at all.
Okay, hello everyone.
You can talk.
Oh, I can talk. Hello everybody, thank you so much for having me. Shame, there's my bestest friend from growing up, Don. Hello, Don. So I'm gonna share a little bit of a presentation with you, talk around it. And yeah, I just want to say very quickly that I'm honored to be sharing the platform with these ladies. I'm going to speak a little bit more about how my sister, who's my business partner, and I pivoted our business in COVID-19, and I hope you enjoy it. So here we go. Oh, sorry, go back. Okay, go.
And we are fighting for our survival, calling all rescue teams to come to our immediate aid and assistance. This is not a draw. I repeat, this is not a draw.
So guys, you'll see why I started with this, and that's how I'll actually wrap up my talk. But I just want to let you know that our industry is actually in a crisis, and it's a reality. And as an entrepreneur, when times like this do happen, this is when we really have to test our mettle. And when it feels like everything is working against what you've planned, maybe now is the time that we have to rethink about what we have planned. Your things are, sorry guys, I'm just gonna do the next slide. Yeah. Okay, so just very quickly, who are we and where it all began? Sisters Act is an independent production company that actually started in 2002. And if the name gives it away, it actually is. It's run by two sisters, myself and my business partner, Elanet. And you cannot get two more different people, even if you tried. I think the only similarity is that we sound a lot alike, and we're both very loud, crazy, and passionate individuals. But other than that, I come from the marketing and hospitality industry, and Elanet comes from the entertainment industry. But I think that is one of the ingredients to our success, because we actually we bring a unique perspective to the business, and it's that has actually allowed us to create these bespoke events. And not only that, one of the successes of our business is that we have what we call expert partners. They are not suppliers, but they are expert partners, and they are actually an extension of our business, and which allow us to create these bespoke events. So another thing that really allows Sisters Act to be who we are today is that we have got a very different approach to business, because even though we are both directors, Elanet and myself, we've got a very hands-on approach. We tend to always be either one of us at the event from the beginning to the end. And part of our involvement is actually to deal with challenges. And before I even get to COVID-19, I mean, Elanet and I have had many challenges in our business. And just because I've only got 10 minutes to chat, just to quickly give you two challenges that we have faced in our industry. I'll never forget, in about 2008, I had just found out that I was pregnant. I wasn't allowed to say anything because it wasn't the 3 months yet. And we were awarded one of our biggest conferences ever, and we were going to create our own venue. We were building a structure on the lawn opposite the CTICC in the SARS building. We were building a double-story structure, and I had to work with German engineers to actually make the floor, which was a solid double-story, into a U shape, so that we could have double volume where the people were sitting down below. And our other big draw card, which we sold to the client, was that we were going to build a bridge from the structure to the courtyard of where the Cullinan Hotel was, so that the guests didn't have to cross the main road. And this bridge, which had to be approved by council, and actually would take about a week to build. By the time my sister got permission, we only had like 3 days to build this bridge. And again, it was with teamwork and with our suppliers that we were able to get this done, and we overcame the challenge, and we actually pulled off a wonderful event. Another one, very quickly, another challenge which faced us was, I took snow to Mozambique in summer. And the day that we arrived in Mozambique, the government just, boom, out of the blue said it's a public holiday. I'm like, are you nuts? Public holiday. Our trucks were impounded. We had 3 days to build a 2-meter ice bar and create snow and igloos. And, you know, there I was with my small team because of budget. We had to work with the team that we were going to work with all spoke Portuguese. They were Portuguese suppliers of ours that we were going to work with new, and our trucks were impounded. Before I left, my husband, who's wise, more logical, you know, I tend to just be a bit more spontaneous and quirky. He gave me $1,000 and he said to me, Rit, I love you, best of luck. You're going to pull this off. But I just want you to know one thing. This $1,000 is for you if there's an emergency. No bribing, no do anything silly with it and all of that. That it's for an emergency, Rit, if you get stuck. But now this to me was an emergency. My trucks were impounded. I needed to get them out. I needed to set up for this event. I'm bringing snow to Africa. It was advertised on the radio. There was hype. We had the top muso in Mozambique that was going to perform at this event. And I got permission to go into the compound where the trucks were being kept, just so that I could see my guy and give him food because he wasn't allowed to leave. And I stuck the $1,000 in my brookies, and thought that, you know, if I see an official, then, you know, well, hell, I'm going to bribe him because I need to get my trucks out. And thank goodness the logic side kicked in, because I mean, I could have probably landed up in the jail in Mozambique. So I didn't bribe him, don't worry. And we did get our trucks out one at a time. But literally, we had to set up this whole event within less than 48 hours. Now, I think Sean from Event Interiors is on the group, and she can tell you that when you've got an event that takes 3 days to build and you've only got 2 days, it's make or break. And I don't know how we did it, because I spoke English, Portuguese, English, and with these guys and my small team, we put this event together. And again, we overcome the challenge, but it was teamwork, an extension of our suppliers, and we were able to pull off something wow, which was bringing snow to Mozambique. And I believe that it was a memorable event for many years to come, a talk, amongst the people in Mozambique. But as I say, while COVID-19 is not just a blip on our radar, it's another challenge. But Elanit and I, we found ourselves in a situation where this year we started off with a jam-packed year. And this year was a year where we actually had work which was confirmed for July and August and November, which doesn't always happen in our industry. Sometimes we have months which are crazy, and sometimes we're months that are quiet. But this year was really looking like a great year, and then all of a sudden, within 24 hours, it just shut down. And our events, they weren't postponed, guys, they were cancelled. And we almost went from 0 to hero, and we couldn't see each other at that time. We were in lockdown. I wasn't allowed out due to poor health that I had about a year ago. So I was homebound, and we were nervous. We were worried. The first thing that we had to do was make sure that all our suppliers were paid, and that no one was owed any money. And both Elanit and I could see that lockdown, even though they said it was probably going to be about 3 weeks, we could see with the overseas trends that wasn't going to be. And then it's, how do you keep your business alive? How do you survive? And our business is not just a business; it's a passion. It's our baby. I mean, we gave birth to this business. We eat, breathed, and slept it. So, and how do you keep it alive when government, all the restrictions that they put into place was completely against our industry? Not to say that others were also not facing, the severity of COVID-19, but really all the restrictions were just against us. Give you an example. So social distancing, my goodness, we're in events. We want people to be together, social distancing. Okay, all right, let's see another thing. Curfew and alcohol restrictions. You don't go to a party until the person 10 o'clock go home and, oh, you can only have one whiskey. Come on, guys. 2 or 3 glasses of wine. We party till we want to go home. And then, no human contact. Are you mad? This is what we live for. We are creating these amazing events and these parties where you all can come together, let your hair down, and, have fun. And what was happening was that businesses were adapting at a very fast pace, and they were using technology like online meetings. They were using Zoom, webinar jams, all of these online platforms that were not costing much. And not to be horrible, and please don't take this the wrong way, I'm a person that's got ADHD. So, by the time it came to the 3rd Zoom meeting, I couldn't stay awake because it wasn't engaging enough for someone like me with my personality. And then to hear that some of my clients are trying to do conferences and events using these platforms, I knew that we had to change. We had to adapt, and we were not going to give up without a fight. So what we did is we actually, through Zoom, because that was the only way that we could connect with our expert partners, we sat and we said to ourselves, how are we going to reimagine what eventing could be in this in this new normal. And oh, sorry, okay, I just want to get to the next slide. No, it's not going. There's a great quote, which is the opportunity, and I'd like to read it to you because I think it's something that Elanit and I really seized, and really what we did. The opportunity of a lifetime must be seized within the lifetime of that opportunity. And that is exactly what we did. We created these visually beautiful events in an online platform using the most simplest technology. We took green screens, told our people to stand in front of the green screen, and then we designed virtual sets and allowed people from anywhere around the world to be dropped into these sets. And we were able to design these events to whatever our customers wanted, whether it be a conference, whether it be a product launch. And, you know, that is how we could see with our expert partners that we could adapt and fit into this online environment. And honestly, it was perfect. We were so excited. We were all behind this. We started to market it, put it online, and try and sell it to our clients, until we realized it didn't sell. It didn't sell because our clients were already with Webinar Jam and Zoom, which were for free. Or to buy a Webinar Jam license wasn't expensive. So we had put all this work. We'd managed to record myself in one of the demos. And even though the feedback was so positive, they didn't want to pay for it. So again, not giving up, Elanit and I, we're like two Jack Russells. We will go for it. We will carry on and continue. Thank goodness we were brought up by a dad who told us, you know, he's also a self-businessman. And he said to us, you know, just never give up. You've got to go for it, go for it, go for it. And we pushed and we pushed and we quoted and we re-quoted and quoted and re-quoted and quoted. And we told our expert partners, if you all want to stay alive, we've got to just make a little bit less, believe in what we're doing, believe in this product, and we've just got to go for it. And last week, Tuesday, we were given our first break and we did our first virtual online event. And what a phenomenal feeling it was. First of all, we were hysterical. Elanit flew to Joburg. She was in the studio. I was in Cape Town. We were like nervous wrecks. We didn't sleep the whole night. We could only rehearse up until 9 because of the rehearsal. Again, another challenge. We used to rehearsing right through the night until we are 100% happy with everything. Elanit had to go home at 9. Still things were at, you know, up in the air. And just to be part of it and watch it online and just see what we have done. I mean, I only went onto Facebook for the first time in lockdown, just so that I could see what everyone else was doing. I don't belong on Facebook. I don't live in the digital world. I'm a human being. I'm a human person. I live by contact. That's how I love to live my life. And yeah, I am doing a virtual online event, surrounding myself with my small little team of expert partners and pulling off this amazing piece of work. And I think what was even more of an accomplishment was, because we were doing this all from home, was to show my boys who are 14 and 10, you don't give up. You know, because they were living it with me. They saw when no work was coming in. What are we going to do? They were living it. How we rang a bell. We were running around the house. I was running around the house. We got our first job. We got our first job. And my sons clapping their hands. We got our first job, you know, and then how did it go? And everyone was involved. And just going again on this journey with my best friend, my partner, my sister. We both had the same goal. And also allowing small little businesses to open their doors again. 5 little companies were able to open their doors for us to pull this event, that one of the girls had done no work until last week, Tuesday, for the first time she opened up her doors. And just the smile and to say, wow, Sarit, you know, thank you. And, you know, let's just keep on pushing forward. So, you know, every step forward helped us to change the perception of online events and to raise the bar. And, you know, we're gonna continue. It's not easy, but we're gonna continue. So I'd like to end off. Sure, I did well, I think, under 10 minutes. Okay, so I'd like to end off because, believe it or not, and it's quite funny, when Lisa asked me to talk, I was like, oh, I don't know, you know, I'm normally the one that, even though I do love to talk, I don't normally do presentations. I'm normally the one that runs the presentations. But what was very interesting is that today is actually hashtag Light Up SA Red, and it's the event protest day today. All the event industry, your freelancers, your event coordinators, wedding coordinators, caterers, technical, they are all protesting today. And if you are between 6 to 8 this evening, if you can see the stadium or you can see the civic center, there are buildings that will be lit up in red, because this industry is still in a crisis. People have lost their jobs. You, not to sound morbid or down, but you have got guys that were technical, that were making a good living, that are actually on street corners begging, because this industry is in a crisis. So I ask you today to think of the industry, and wherever you can help us, support us, because Elanit and I, Sisters Act, as I said, that was born in 2002, we sure are still going to make sure that we stay alive and we fight the fight, and we will continue to light Cape Town and the rest of South Africa red. So thank you for having me, and I hope you enjoyed a little bit of the talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Saret. Yes. Amazing tenacity, and just incredible to listen to your story. But there is a question for you, Saret, before we end off. I'm just looking here. The question is from Donna, and she says, how do you remain resilient and so positive?
I think if you know the 2 years that I've had, I think you'll understand why I do still remain so positive and resilient. Last year was a challenge when I was diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma. I overcame that. And Mandy actually asked me, why were you doing this with your hair? And I just said, Mandy, it's so nice to have hair again. It's so nice to have hair again. But actually, I stay positive and resilient because, again, just very quickly, I do it also for my boys. Being at home, I need to show them. We want them to be positive. Come on. I know it's online schooling. It's different for you and all of that and whatever. So if we want them to be positive, I've got to stay positive. But I think I also stay positive because I've got a wonderful partner who happens to be my sister, who happens to be my best friend. And because I think we're together in this, on this journey, we've been in it from day one. And believe you me, we can kill each other, we can fight, we might not talk for a couple of weeks, but we always know family comes first. We've always been taught to stay positive and resilient. And, having her at the helm with me, and again, our expert partners, I think we're still going to, as tough as it is, and we're only getting one job at a time, I think we're going to beat this, and we're going to be around for a long time.
Thank you. Thanks, Saret. And Nikki, just on that topic, have you got anything to add? Because I know that's one of your areas of expertise as well, in terms of perhaps how do stories make us or help us to become more resilient?
So much to say around that. First, I just want to say, Saret, you're such an inspiration. I feel like I'm buzzing listening to you. It's just incredible to see. I think everything I was talking of, you are an embodiment of that in action, and I think it's very much, the stories that we tell ourselves. Is this a story of possibility? Is this a story of I'm going to dig deep and anything is possible and we can't give up when we keep trying? Or is it a story of, is it a story of deficiency, that there isn't enough, that there's scarcity, and so I think just starting to really pay attention to what are those internal narratives, and that's where sometimes it's useful to think with somebody to start really crafting what a new possible narrative or story can be, to sort of just expand our thinking, to step into a new story, a new possibility.
And thanks, Nikki. We're almost running out of time, but just for Mandy, a question has come through which is asking, what more can I do to protect my child from a downward spiral?
So I think at this particular time, one of the most important things is actually to spend time with our kids, to see them as capable, able, mature individuals, to give them the benefit of the doubt where we might not otherwise have, to do things with them, find a way to connect and communicate deeply with them. What are they thinking? How are their friends doing? What else can they be doing to be in touch with them while in this situation? So whether we're baking with them or hiking with them or just going on a drive with them, so any opportunity that we can try and find to be with them and engage with them is going to be helpful.
Thank you, Mandy. And I think, sorry, I'm just looking at the time, and I think we need to close off, but just really wanted to thank all of our speakers. Sorry, did Glenda?
I just really thought before we say goodbye that I really want to celebrate Lisa and Brenna and what they do, because they are two phenomenal women and they do an amazing job, and the entrepreneur community that they work with are really blessed. And I hope everybody knows that. I think they do. But I just didn't want the time to go by without that being said.
Bravo.
Thank you. So just to thank all of you for your, most importantly, your time this morning, but also for your wisdom and for your inspiration to all of us with Women's Day coming up. We can all do with even if it is just 10 minutes from each of you, of which we could have listened to way more, but just cognizant of everybody's time. So thank you, just so much appreciated from ORT Jet and from all of us. And I think that is all. We have recorded this session, so we will post it in a few days for you to share with anybody that might benefit. But thanks to everybody and happy Women's Day.
Thanks, Bren.